Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, people of all ages, welcome everybody to yet another video here on the channel. I am once again your host, Old Shaman, and today we have ourselves a wondrous surprise. Yes, that is correct. We are doing a manga haul video, and it has been quite some time since the last one, so I will make sure to walk through all the latest pieces of manga that I have collected in, I want to say, at least over a year since the last time I've uploaded a video here to the channel that was manga related. So anyways, let the manga do the talking. I hope you all enjoy this video, and please, if you are not already subscribed, please subscribe to the channel. Check out some of my other content. I do have some other videos on the channel going over some manga, comic books, and great anime related content. Anyways, thank you all. Please enjoy. Welcome back, everybody. So here we have is the wondrous bookshelves here that I have in my collection. Again, we're just going to be individually talking about some of the pieces that I have recently picked up here in my collection. We're first going to go ahead and start off with this top shelf here. As the last haul video that I did do, I did not talk about these particular volumes. So up here is what I like to call the designated Viz Pulp series shelf. Now, all these series that you have here were part of Viz's kind of exclusive lineup that they had in the early 90s to early, I guess more of late 90s to the early 2000s. When they were publishing and bringing new series here to the States, they were, of course, trying to also bring over more manga directed towards a more older crowd of readers. And so the pulp line was to almost cultivate that into getting a more broader audience for this series. So I did want to talk to you guys briefly about a couple of these series. So first off we have is Bakken Young. This is actually a very interesting series. The style of art in this one is kind of weird. It's a little bit strange. It takes a lot of Gekiga elements from this one. So for instance, the dramatization, the facial expressions, the overall expression that a lot of the characters in this series express is very interesting and almost kind of weird. I would honestly say in order to get a feel for the series, you would need to probably check this out yourself. It's not something that I would recommend to a lot of casual readers as it's very, very weird. But if you are a fan of Gekiga, you are a fan of alternate manga, then I would recommend this as a starting point in your manga collecting library. Next we have is Benki in New York. This is, of course, going to be a Jiro Taniguchi work. Taniguchi is sort of an interesting, I would say, conductor in the manga world. His art style is very, very good. In fact, I honestly do like a lot of his work and a lot of his art that he has in this one. This one is a one-shot manga, kind of follows the story of Benki, who is a hitman for hire, who goes around and, of course, kind of has an interesting way of getting to know his clients before he murders them without spoiling too much. Essentially, he's a hitman for hire who essentially takes on the role as a friend for a lot of his targets before he does murder them. So it's actually a pretty interesting concept. The artwork is really good, but the story just kind of falls flat. A lot of it is short stories, so it doesn't really follow a linear pattern, and because of that, it's a little bit hard to follow with this one, but overall, I enjoyed it quite a bit. Next we have is Black and White. I actually have not read this one quite yet, but yet again, this one is kind of almost like a legend in the manga community in terms of storytelling. I look forward to reading it, but as for the time being, I don't really have much to talk about with this one. This one is a Matsumoto work, so, take that as you will. Very unique, interesting art style. Again, very much taking a lot of Gekiga influence from the early 70s with its dramatization, as well as also exaggerated faces and also facial expressions. Next we have is probably Pulp's longest series, which is Dance Till Tomorrow. Again, I have not finished or have really started this series. I've read the first volume, and from what I gather, it's kind of about a prostitute trying to almost get their lives together and kind of figure out things in the world. Essentially, it's a kind of almost slice of life series with a very much dark undertone to it. I don't know about this one. I may or may not finish this one. The first volume didn't really impress me all that much, as I didn't even get to really finish what else was remaining of the series. But overall, I would say if you are looking for something that's a little bit more darker for a slice of life series, then check this one out. You may enjoy it, you may not, but that is definitely a discussion for another time. All right, and next to that are these little guys here, kind of a specialty release done by Viz, but we have Heartbroken Angels, Volume 1 and Volume 2, done in these really interesting hardcover releases that Viz did for a period of time. Now, the interesting thing to notate about this series, Heartbroken Angels, while the release is really cool, the actual series itself kinda is not. Essentially, it has to do with a lot of like sex work, and it definitely has some child undertones to it. I did not like this series one bit. It's a really interesting release despite the subject matter, and I get where Viz was trying to, get a dark series over here for, but with the content in this one, I would very much take it with a grain of salt. Definitely not one of my favorite series, and definitely not something I would recommend. But if you are a collector and you're looking to get the pulp line, then this is one of the series that you will have to go for, then yeah, definitely not the best. But the release, as far as the hardcover goes, is kind of interesting. So I guess a uniqueness factor for that. Orochi Blood. This is an interesting horror series. Essentially, this is another culmination of a bunch of short stories done by Umezu, which is a horror mangaka. Very similar in the realms of, I'm drawing a blank here. People who have created various series like Devilman, and also too similar to that, I'm honestly drawing a blank, but it's Jiro something. Horror mangaka of this time period, in the late 80s and early 90s, we're definitely going for more shock and psychological horror than anything else. This very much follows a very similar pattern to that, and so in other words, it definitely does have a lot of those undertones that a lot of those other horror mangakas draw inspiration from. I'm trying to, again, remember, but the guy who's created Shiver, Frankenstein, and all the other well-known horror mangas, Uzumaki, and all the whole bunch of other stuff. There you go, Uzumaki and Gaio. That mangaka, whoever he is, not a big fan of him, but that is one of those series that he very much draws inspiration from. Shortcut, Volume 1. Yes, so this is a 2-volume series. It's a very short series. This one is yet another slice of life manga. Follows a high schooler on their way to graduation, and again, kind of going through the struggles of coming of age and being able to find their place inside of the world. This one is a definite more tame story compared to Dance Till Tomorrow, but it's only a 2-volume series, and I wasn't very impressed with the first volume. It's a 2-volume series, and unfortunately there's a story that goes along with the second volume, but to make a long story short, essentially the second volume never shipped to me, and ever since then I have just not bought in the series or bought in the final volume. But anyways, that's a topic for another day. Not really all that good, but not terrible. If you're looking for, again, to complete a pulp manga, then there you go. All right, now we actually come to one of my favorite series, which is done by none other than, of course, Ryoshi Ikigami for the art, and then Burson as the mangaka writer. This is an absolutely fantastic follow-up to Sanctuary. It follows absolutely zero of the story, so it's not anything like Sanctuary. But in terms of art style and overall quality, this is something I would highly recommend if you are a Sanctuary fan. For those of you who don't know, Sanctuary is like one of my all-time favorite series. So this follows yet another gunman for hire who ends up getting a client that he falls in love with and decides, instead of to kill her, wants to protect her. It is a very fascinating concept and actually one of my all-time favorite series, also done by Ikigami in terms of art style. He knocks it out of the park with this one. A really good series. If it's any of these pulp series on my shelf to recommend, it would be this one. If you don't already have this one, out of print, so you cannot get it easily, but if you find it for a really good price, I would recommend picking it up. Next we have is Voyeur and Voyeur Inc. Also have not read this one quite yet. It essentially, from what I hear in the synopsis, is that it is about again, a lot of these pulp series have to do with a lot of sex work. This one has to do with a filmmaker who does sex work specifically. So basically filming pornography. It has a very noir kind of esque twist to it. Again, it has a lot of that dramatization and art style too as well. But again, I don't know if I'll get to this one. More importantly, I think the only reason I picked all these up here is just to complete my pulp line. But again, Strain is one I would recommend. That is truthfully something that I would say is worth picking up. And then Orochi Blood is also not bad if you are looking for a horror manga. But as for Voyeurs, I'll probably get to it. Just as of right now, have not had the chance to. All right, next we have is The Drops of God. Volume 1, 2 Volume 3s, a Volume 4, and then The Drops of God New World, which is the sequel series. These were done by Vertical, as if you already could not tell. It was canceled in the physical release, however, was finished digitally. This is a very interesting manga. Essentially, this is yet another unique kind of premise where essentially it does follow the story of two sommeliers who kind of go around to different vineyards as well as to talk about various different wines, the history, the science, of course, and going into detail as to various different real-world concepts of wine itself. This is a very good series. The artwork is stellar. The concept is also really good. And in my opinion, this was something that I think Vertical had a good idea running for them. However, I guess it just didn't catch on very well. And so people really just dropped the series and didn't really look anywhere else afterwards, which is unfortunate because it's actually a really good series. Would I recommend it? Yes. If you are planning on getting a series or getting into something that's a pretty unique concept, I would recommend The Drops of God, as it is a pretty cool series. So we are going to be making our way down a little bit to the shelves that we have here in my collection. Again, we have a couple of interesting pickups that we did make over the course of the past year, again, since the last time I did a manga haul video. We have, first and foremost, we have is Laolia, Volume 1 and Volume 2. This is yet another Gekiga series that takes on more of a modern approach, so very much in the realm of dramatization and, of course, being a more obscure, obtuse, and avant-garde series. Laolia is a series of short stories that do follow the Gekiga format, again, in that same realm of short stories. However, it does focus on a more obscure art style, and so a lot of the stories definitely have a more intuitive feel to them. I know it's very much, I'm using a lot of words here to describe this series, but essentially that is what it is. I mean, it doesn't really follow a linear storytelling pattern. It's very much an avant-garde style of series. Now, this is done by Glacier Bay Books, which I would highly recommend if you are looking to get into the realm of modern Gekiga or alternative manga as a whole. They do have a series of various other titles that they do publish that does not follow that short story pattern. But if you are, of course, looking to get into a series of Gekiga short stories, I would definitely recommend checking out Laolia once it does go back into print, hopefully soon. Next to that, we have The Walking Man, which is yet, I believe, another Taniguchi work. I have this sealed. I believe this was done as a specialty print. I'm trying to remember who exactly did this. Pre-ordered this on Amazon and just have not had the chance or the opportunity to read it quite yet. But definitely, nonetheless, Taniguchi is definitely a very unique and interesting mangaka. Next we have is Fists of the North Star, Volume 1 and Volume 4 in the hardcover editions. Strangely enough, I did a book exchange and I had these on my wish list, and these were the two books that I received. And so because of that, they're displayed here on my shelf. For those of you who are also unaware, I do also own the Fist of the North Star Master Editions, Volume 1 through 9. These are in full color, so that is a really cool idea. And unfortunately, they didn't utilize any of the color pages here for the omnibuses, but overall, they're pretty good quality. Let's take a look here. So, again, pretty good quality for a standard book. The one thing I don't really care for too much is that they are white on the outside, so they do get dirty quite easily. That is kind of one thing I was disappointed with when they released this, is that they weren't going to be a little bit better quality, but, you know, it is what it is. Next we have is Super Sentai Goranger. So this is yet another 7 Seas release, one of the few that I actually, was excited for. Not the biggest 7 Seas fan, but I was kind of excited to get on board with purchasing this. Really cool, really fun series. If you're a fan of Power Rangers or the history behind the Power Rangers, then I would recommend checking that out. All right, so this is a very interesting shelf because honestly, I don't think I've talked about any of these series. Kaiji Volume 1 finally came out. That's a Denpa release. You guys all know the story behind that. That is just one big fucking mess. I don't know if we're ever going to have a continuation or, even close to a completion of that particular series. But, hey, maybe eventually one of these days. Fukushima Devilfish, yet another Gekiga work, a series of short stories. The main, of course, short story is the Fukushima Devilfish, but otherwise, another series culmination of various Gekiga stories told from the wonders and masterminds behind this period of time. Next we have is The Swamp, done by, of course, Suge, who is one of the pioneers and godfathers of Gekiga. Another really great series of short stories in this one, and in my opinion, was a really, really good release done by Drawn and Quarterly. I definitely do enjoy and love a lot of their different and various works that they do put out. I believe as far as Gekiga goes, a lot of this other stuff, too, was already picked up from my previous release, so don't really need to worry about that. All right, so we have a couple of different other releases here. I believe the last time I did not talk about Berserk Volume 40. We are still waiting on Berserk Volume 41, the final volume for Berserk as of right now. What's there to say, man? I mean, it is definitely unfortunate circumstances. Mira had his dream of completing the series, and unfortunately, he left us soon, and we won't be able to really get that fully realized understanding of what he wanted to do with the story. So I think to carry on his legacy, obviously, I've been a fan of Berserk for a very long time. I've owned the first edition prints for, I think, before I even started uploading here to the channel. Again, big hardcore Berserk fan, and Mira will be missed. He again did a lot for the manga world, and he pioneered quite a bit too. So definitely one of my favorite series, and Volume 40 nonetheless. So we come over here, and we do have quite an interesting pickup, needless to say. So for those of you who are unaware, 5 Star Stories has been my longtime dream of completion for here on the channel. And I know that a lot of people have been interested to see what my update is on this series to what I have picked up. And I believe since the last time I uploaded a video, I have collected quite a few of the volumes in this series. So let's go ahead and talk about it. So Volume 26, which is probably the hardest of the volumes to find, I found on eBay for a really good price, could not pass up, so I did pick this one up. This is probably the hardest volume to find. I honestly have no idea how many of these volumes are in circulation. Probably less than 100, if I'm not mistaken, from the last time I discussed it here with some of the manga collectors on Reddit. And then we have Volume 21. That was another volume that was kind of giving me the runaround for a little bit, so that was another difficult pickup. And then finally, we have Volume 18, which that was another hard volume to find and eventually was able to come by. So in other words, the only volumes I am missing is 19, 23, and then finally 25. Currently, there is a Volume 25 online going, but it is in extremely poor condition and definitely not something that I want to invest in. All right, You guys ever heard of Comics One? Okay, well, they print series like Iron Walk John and Dark Edge, which that is right there, another very obscure series. A lot of people in the community have now taken this whole turn on out-of-print manga. I wish I was in this generation still, but I honestly don't quite understand some of the people who are involved with it now. Prom G is probably one of the only few that I remember from when I was still making content that is very big into out-of-print collecting. If you are into Comics One and you're looking for a very 80s style series, I would say Midnight Eye is worth a pickup / look. It's a very, very kind of over-the-top series. If I had to compare it to anything, it would probably be Golgo 13 if it was set in a sci-fi universe. Very interesting concept, very weird, but overall interesting. All right, Golden Kumoe, volume 13, 14, and 15. I believe that is the most recent of the pickups from the series. This is such a weird series. I mean, I basically had it for a very long time. I stopped collecting it and basically, yeah, moved on. All right, guys. Well, thank you all for checking out the pickups video. I hope you all enjoyed seeing some of the new manga that I have collected. Again, I am working on hopefully getting some more series here soon. And of course, hopefully putting out some more videos. Thank you once again all for watching, and I hope to see you all on the next one. Peace out.